Good afternoon and good morning to those of you out west. Welcome to today's demo cast from the Construction Specifier and Deltek. My name is Farheen. I'm the Associate Editor for the Construction Specifier and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Just to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started, if you have any questions during today's demo cast, please enter them using the Q&A section which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom window. We will address as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Zoom does have a raise hand function, but since we'll be keeping everyone's mics muted, only use the Q&A instead. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties during the demo cast, you can enter a message in the chat, which you'll find right next to the Q&A, and we'll do our best to help. Today's demo cast is being recorded and will be available on the Construction Specifier's website by this time next week. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Nick Chen. In his role as solutions engineer, Nick specializes in creating software-based solutions that tackle specification challenges for architecture and engineering firms. Nick merges technical expertise with industry insights, including the advantages of AIA MasterSpec integrated with Specpoint, which enhances specification processes and drives successful outcomes for clients. In this demo cast, Nick will discuss 3 proven ways to enhance your specifications with Deltek Specpoint, home of AIA MasterSpec. In this webinar, you will discover how to streamline your product selection process, the convenience of using pre-built templates for faster spec writing, and how automation helps make informed product decisions shaping specifications. Nick, we appreciate you joining us today. Please take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you, Farheen. Yeah, excited to share how we can leverage technology to solve some common issues that we find within the industry. I am going to turn my camera off for the time being just to conserve bandwidth. I'll pop it back on when we do our Q&A. Before we hop into the demonstration, I wanted to highlight some of the things that we'll be addressing, some common errors that we find or issues, problem areas for firms, and how we can address those by leveraging the technology within Specpoint. So working in a clockwise fashion, starting in the upper left-hand corner, we'll be talking about how we can make coordinating the 3 parts of a specification easier, how simple product decisions can ensure that any relevant information, mostly within part 1, but sometimes in part 3, that content can be brought in automatically based on, again, some of those content decisions or product decisions we're making in part 2 of a section. We'll also talk about how we can connect the right expert to ensure they're contributing the right data by ensuring that they're also focused on the right area of a section as well, and focusing them in on their areas of expertise. We'll also talk about one of our main pieces of automation with Specpoint, our product automation, and how we can ensure what is being specified is in line with what products we are choosing from. And all of this will obviously have an impact on the schedule and progression of a specification to make sure that we are hitting our schedule and budget in respect to the specifications. So all of what we'll be seeing today within Specpoint, you'll be seeing hopefully a more user-friendly, and we'll be looking at how our modern approach to specification writing is being addressed with Specpoint. We'll be using AIA MasterSpec content, the content that many of our users have trusted upon for many years. They'll be the center of how we'll be working within the specifications. We'll also talk about how we can make it easier to ensure that all sections coming from even other content sources or imported documents are aligned from a formatting perspective with templates that you can pre-build. Again, we'll be talking about the product automation and some of the research that's available to our users as they're preparing their specifications. And we'll also be talking about how we have collaboration features. Obviously, Specpoint, being a cloud-based environment, really ensures that you can work collaboratively with your team for specifications and how that can improve the quality of your work all around. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into a demonstration of Specpoint. So this is the workspace for Specpoint. I've just kind of started a project and started working within here right away. And one of the first things I want to talk about was how we can use assemblies as a way to better organize and frame how we're going to be approaching our specifications. Obviously, assemblies help us for gearing us up for Revit automation, something that we're excited to be having in a little bit more of a fuller form in the coming quarters. We'll be seeing some of that next year. But it also, again, allows us to start framing what specifications we should be considering. And it also allows us to start putting meaningful information into the specification right away. So typically we can identify our assemblies, our systems earlier on in the design phase of a project before we even start thinking about specifications. And right away when we start identifying some of those systems, we can start putting in performance requirement criteria, which would later be called upon later in the specification. Additionally, as we start to further define what that assembly is going to be, we can also starting to see and understand what all the sections are that are going to be required or considered for that assembly as well. So before you necessarily know what sections you're going to need or what products are going to be needed for or defined in some of your sections, just by understanding some of the assembly information, which again, sometimes we can identify earlier, this is allowing us to frame some of that and have an idea of what we need to be considering before we start actually making specification decisions further on in the project. So while we do have the assembly-based approach, we always have the divisional format available to users as well. And this is, again, the traditional view of having all of our divisions in sequential order. And then as we expand our divisions, we start to see all the relevant sections for that division. So this is the entirety in both formats. This is the entirety of the MasterSpec library. All users in Specpoint will have the totality of our library available to them. There's no differences in the content itself from what you may have been used to with MasterSpec in working within the Specpoint platform. So let's go ahead and start adding some information to our project. I'm just going to expand out our section and we'll start to see all the product types listed below. So when we're talking about how we can make specifications a little bit more specific to the users that would know the relevant information, this is one of the ways that we can do it while also being collaborative. So I'm going to go ahead and add in this particular product type to this section. I'm just going to add to project, and we'll see that the product type as well as the section above it will be added in. So again, we break out our product types for a couple reasons. As mentioned, it allows us to have users that maybe know a lot about our product information focus in on that area. So our product type information is going to be specific to that product's certain characteristics or qualities of that product that we're going to be defining within this section. Whereas someone that may have more familiarity with some of the more administrative components of a section can focus in on that. So again, most of our part one information is going to be found at the section level. We also know that product type information is going to be the thing that changes the most throughout the project lifecycle. So as mentioning, if we want to ensure that we have coordination between our three parts, rather than taking the entirety of the section, understanding what needs to change for that product type, and making any other related changes within part one, sometimes in part three as well, make sure that those are all happening at the same time. This is allowing us to go specifically to the product type, make its change, and have it roll up to the overall section. So just as a very quick example of how we're kind of making sure that this is coordinated, again, I'm just focusing in on this product type that I'm going to be adding in for this acoustical panel ceilings. If I expand out our summary, we can see that this is the only product type that's going to be listed within our section includes, where we're going to have the rest of that, the rest of the products that aren't included, they're going to be grayed out. So this gets into some of our automation that we have to ensure, again, that we have, based on some of our decisions, that's rolling up to the overall section. We can also see this reflected in some things like our action submittals. So for this particular project, I had created it to have sustainability language for lead v4.1. So we can see all of the other sustainability language for this particular section is now grayed out. But as I keep scrolling, we'll see that the lead v4.1 information is included. So again, we're leveraging our technology when available to make sure that if we are wanting to have certain sustainability language, certain product type information added, some of the necessary information is being brought in, and then everything else that would not be needed for your section is grayed out by default. We think this is just a better way to give you a starting point for your section versus having to manage the entirety of the section and take away what is not needed. So this is obviously quite a bit of a different look for our specifications than what you might be used to. But if we pull up a preview of the section, you'll quickly see that the traditional Word or PDF version of a section is still the same. Again, as we scroll through, it's a smaller version of the entirety of the section, just based on what we have brought in. But again, our end result, what we're going to be working towards is going to be the same. The kind of organizational difference that we have, or what we're seeing right now, is only reflective of the workspace itself. So as mentioned, we do have some automation available for our product automation. So I'm just going to minimize our screen so we can see our information for products as well. Bear with me as I'm adjusting. Let's give it a little bit of a cleaner view. So I'm going to expand out our information for the acoustical panels product type. As we scroll through, we'll see the orange pills and some different callouts for values listed. This is really just the new way that we're presenting our options within Specpoint. And if I pull up our product selection in the background, we'll start to see all of the products that are available for us. And right now we're seeing it available for our acoustical panels. One of the nice things about our product automation is that wherever you are within the application, what you're seeing in this window will be reflected of what you're seeing. So if you're working within the assembly view, if you're at one of the lower level assemblies, you'll see all the products available for all those sections at that lower level assembly. Here in the divisional view, as we're focusing in on this particular product type, that's being reflected here as well, by the way, we are now just seeing a view of all the acoustical panels available within MasterSpec. So one of the things that we can do within Specpoint is that as we're starting to make some of our definitions available within here, starting to define what it is that we're expecting this acoustical panel to be or look like, we can make sure that in the background, we are only going to be able to choose products that match what we're specifying. So just as a quick example, if I want to say, for example, I want this acoustical panel to have a smooth pattern, and I define that by selecting this orange pill here, we'll see in the background that we are now updating our products available to us that match that definition of a smooth pattern. So this works in two ways. You can have it in the first way where you are starting to define your specification, and then maybe someone that has expertise around what specific manufacturers they'd want to use, they can now go in the system, find that manufacturer and select it and have it be consistent with what's been specified if you do have different team members adjusting for that. But as we look at this product, and if I scroll through its properties, we can see edge joint detail as well as modular size be some areas that are further defined by this manufacturer. By the way, if we scroll down further, we can also see the smooth pattern is defined within here. But as we start to identify what products we want to be included within our project, we can also have it the other way, where if you just have users that know what products they would want to use without necessarily having to have any specification input into the system, or maybe you haven't gotten there yet, you can have those people that know what products they want to use for a project contribute to the specifications meaningfully. So again, we've chosen this particular manufacturer to be added into our project. And again, sorry, I clicked on part one general. As we scroll through, we can obviously see that the certainteed manufacturer is being selected. We should also see our smooth pattern still defined within here. But again, the edge joint detail, as well as modular size, is also being captured. So depending on what direction you're working in, it doesn't really matter. We still, within our automation centered around products, still enable you to work in conjunction with potentially other users that might have influence or input in various areas. But as they're starting to make decisions that would overlap one another, we're ensuring that there's no clashing or conflicts between the two. The products that are available to us based on what's been specified are only going to match what has been detailed, or again, we can use our products to completely drive some of our content decisions as well. I did want to highlight as well, within the product cards, we also have resources available to us within these cards. For this particular manufacturer, we have contact information, both an email and a phone number. So if we need to get in contact with a representative at the certainty manufacturer to be able to get whatever further information we may need. Sometimes manufacturers will provide a full-length specification, kind of relevant to their specific product, and we can also get further data from the manufacturer from links that they provide as well. So whether or not you have someone on the team that may know some of this, or they just need some more supplementary information, again, we're making it very easy to not only drive the specification based on product information, but also easily get in touch with members of our manufacturer partners to get the information we need. Some of our other edits within here are pretty self-explanatory as well. I am going to turn on our track changes just so we can see that as we're going. By the way, we see some of our edits being captured within here already based on the smooth pattern that we had defined. But if we want to add custom content within here, it really is no different than typing within a Word document. For instance, just clicking on where you want to make your content additions and typing in line whatever you want. Again, this will be captured within our track changes within here. From here, we can have other users accept or reject changes. If we need further commentary or need to ask questions about some of our edits, that can be done within here as well. And we have user date and timestamps associated with that as well. If we need to rearrange our content or add additional content, we're just going to be using this plus sign next to wherever it makes sense within the hierarchy to add in our content. However, we do have the ability to change the paragraph hierarchy at any point. So if I just add in a new line within our section, have that save. And we have that available now. We then have the 6 dots here on the left-hand side to be able to reorganize however we need. So if we need to make that a sub-item under this paragraph, what was M, now N, we have the ability to do so. But promoting, demoting, rearranging these as needed, again, we're just going to grab those 6 dots and click and drag as needed. Another area of information that's usually helpful for a lot of our users is our supporting documents. This is available right within our Specpoint application. So supplemental information that is helpful to understand some of our maybe changes that have happened, some of our references or standards that are listed, other sections that would be impacted by this particular section. Again, we offer this for every single section that we have, and is a great starting point for those that maybe have a particular question around a section. This is a great first place to look, and again, available right within the application. Another way that you can collaborate with your members within here is by adding notes to a project. We can also leave these at really any point of our project. So if we want to leave it at an overall section level, if we want to leave it at a product type, maybe just a note for the overall project, we can. We can actually go into each individual line item and make a note as well. So if I want to just call out this edge joint detail paragraph and create a new note. This can also work for you as a way to set up tasks for your team or reminders. So we'll just say that this is a modular size note. Say it was determined by product selection. And we'll ask them to see certaintied or more information if there's questions, just as an example. And again, as we add this, we can move this as, again, a reminder or a task. So as we're kind of tracking this, we can move this through levels of completion. So if it's in progress or complete, we can kind of track that. And again, the date, time, name stamp is associated with this, so we can see who is making notes. If we need to add additional commentary around one of these, we can do so within the application as well. All right, I also want to talk about how formatting within and setting up templates within Specpoint is very useful, very easy to do. You also have the ability to import sections within Specpoint. We can do this either at a project level, or if you have something of an office master that's going to be reused frequently, you can pull that in as an office master, going to this tab over here. But as you're bringing in different content that maybe has its own header, footer, style guide information associated with it, it can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge to make sure that all of that is aligned. But within Specpoint, we can ensure that the entirety of our document, regardless of where our content is coming from, is adhering to a singular either style guide or header and footer template that we either are establishing on the fly as we're working within the project, or if we want to reference it from something that we have created from before. So from a style guide perspective, obviously we have the ability to impact our overall font size, color information. That is just kind of a global rule set for our documents. But we can also be quite granular and assign a specific number styling, again, font, color, size, to any level of our paragraphs within here. In addition, we can do the same for our titles, notes to specifier, and units of measure as well. So as a quick example, I just have under paragraph 1, I just have that available as a red text, just to kind of quickly show what that would look like. As you're making changes to this as well, we'll maybe use green so it doesn't clash with our notes to specifier, but we'll be able to see that reflected on the right-hand side as we're making our changes as well. So very useful to be able to just see kind of right away at a glance what it is that we're impacting and how it's going to look. We also have the ability to influence our headers and footers. Here we can pull in merge field information from the section. In this case, we're just calling it family, but really that's just in reference to the section or some of the information that was pulled when creating this project. Of course, you can insert your own information within here as well. And again, font, size, bolding, italicizing, justification, right, left, or center is also available. And again, same thing is available for our footer as well. So we'll just keep those. Anytime that you are referencing a preview of your section, you'll be able to see those changes immediately as well. So within our preview, we'll see our paragraph 1 information with that color, and again, our header information with our test text that we have inserted is available right away from our preview. All right, and then lastly, the last thing I want to show is how we can export out of our system. Again, our end result is still going to be the Word or PDF version that we are used to as an output for our specifications. If you're wanting to export a single section or just something that you're working on, you can hit this export button here to grab that, again, just as a singular instance. But if you do want to export the entirety of your project, you can do so by hitting this tab as well. In this case, we can export as a PDF or Word document. We can choose whether or not to include our notes to specifier, include our bookmarks, and then whether or not we want to show our track changes within here as well. So depending on what you want included in your package, you do have some flexibility and controls. This will export as a file that has all the individual sections as their own file type, which can later be merged into a single Word or PDF version if necessary. I also just wanted to show one last place where you can get information if you do have questions about what you're specifying. This is our project research map. This can be helpful to understand, if you're working within a new state that you haven't worked within before. This can allow you to get some information potentially about certain projects that are happening. So let's just say that we are going to be working in Washington for the first time, and we just want to see some of the projects that are happening within here. We can further define this if we want to. Maybe we're building our first retail space, for example, and we just want to see some of the other retail projects. We can further filter down if necessary. But as we look at more details within here, we can see some of the sections that are available within here. We can also see some of the different, budget information. All of this can be filtered upon on this left-hand side. But if we do have questions about maybe certain products that they're using, we can get an idea of some of what they have specified within here. There is no firm identifying information within here, but this would be a way where we can start to, again, just understand how some of our other users are using particular sections for particular types of buildings, maybe in particular geographic zones that are new to us, or maybe we just have questions about. In some of these sections, we'll also see some of their product decisions. So if we're curious about certain manufacturers that are being used in certain geographic areas, that is another way that we can use this map just to kind of get an idea of how the community around us is using Specpoint and some of the specification decisions they're making. All right. We'll now pop over to a Q&A. Farheen, do we have any questions from our attendees?
Yes, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. I do see that a lot of audience members had issues with the audio and video, and I would just like to say that we will be emailing the link to the recording, and you will get the presentation in a higher resolution. The first question I have here is, does this include rooftop amenity and green roof specifications?
We do have, was it LEED? Was that what the first part of the question was?
Rooftop amenity and green roof specification. Does it include rooftop?
Yeah, that I'm not sure of. I can check with our content team and follow up with. But as far as I know, a lot of our sustainability language is through things like LEED or green build that's usually attached. But yeah, I can check specifically on those specific requirements.
Thank you. Can we opt out of sharing our project specs for all users to reference?
You can. So at any point, you can choose whether or not to turn any of your projects that you shared is by default going to be shared. Again, nothing that's firm identifying will be available to users, but yeah, you can turn that on and off at any time or opt out for all of your projects.
Thank you. Is there a way to customize an office master to select and deselect certain pills so they do not have to be selected by the editor, add manufacturers and custom pills, or to map the pills to other paragraph, articles, brackets, etc.?
Yeah, fully customizable. If you want to limit the pills that are being selected, the recommendation there would just to be eliminate, just so you just have the one option within the Office Master. But yeah, you can rearrange how the pills are being reflected. It really is your content if it's not coming from MasterSpec as well. So by no means you have to set up an Office Master through the master spec content.
Thank you. And I believe this other question is related to that. Will it work the other way, selecting the characteristics and being able to see what MFG are available?
Yeah, yeah, both ways would work.
Thank you. Is the product list open to all manufacturers or just ones associated with MasterSpec?
For right now, they're only the ones that have been approved and associated with MasterSpec. We will be releasing the ability to customize and create your own product cards as well.
Thank you. Will I be able to review progress printings of a consultant specification live in the system, seeing their editing decisions?
Yeah, if the content is imported in, if you have outside consultants working within here, we do have the ability to tag all of our content through various completion stages from editing, needing review. So we do have what's called our design progress table that'll be allow you to see at a glance, not only where things are within the process, but also who is the owner of our various content that's listed within that table as well.
Thank you. You said the current written sections will still be available, but they will no longer be updated. Is that correct?
No, so the master spec updates will still be provided and updated within the system. If you do have a section that's being used kind of in flight, we will not automatically update those. That just protects your information that you've included to not change without your heads up. We're also going to be including for both Office Master content as well as projects that are in flight, so that when a master spec update occurs, you'll be able to accept or reject those updates and include it into your content. But yeah, master spec updates are never going away. Quarterly updates will be moved to a more regular basis and still delivered within Specpoint.
Thank you. Multiple questions. How can you collaborate with consultants that may not have Deltek Specpoint subscription? I believe you touched on that. Can Office templates and masters be created within Deltek?
Yeah, so again, importing your content is something that you can have documents sent from your consultants that are then imported in. We do have some permission settings as well that allow what we call a collaborator. So something that we can talk to your team about if that makes sense. If you have a lot of consultants that you'd like to be within the system, that's at a discounted rate just to ensure collaboration can happen all within the system, but not taking a hit to your own license count that you would have and maintain.
Thank you. And the last question I can take here is, in the map function, is it possible to not have project information shared? If so, will I be able to verify that my consultants have prohibited sharing of project information?
What was the last part on consultants?
Will I be able to verify that my consultants have prohibited sharing of project information?
Yeah, so short answer, yes, you'll be able to not have your project data shown. That's completely an option that you have. For consultants, if you're on the project, you'll be able to see whether or not that setting is turned on or off. But typically the consultant will have set up the level of permission that's exclusive to them that would allow them to do that. So would probably be best in that scenario just to communicate with your consultants to make sure that they have their sharing turned off.
Thank you so much, Nick. Do you have a slide with your information on it?
I do, yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, any other questions that come up, feel free to reach out to our team, either by email, specificationsolutions@deltek.com. Myself or any of my colleagues would be happy to answer those. If you want a one-on-one demo as well, we'd be happy to do that. Also a phone number attached here, and then for any future events or webinars that we have, always feel free to check in with deltek.com to see that information.
Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. We do apologize for the audio and video issues, but you will get the higher resolution link in your email. That was all the time we had for questions. If you need to reach out with any additional questions, next contact information is currently up on the screen. Just a reminder before everyone leaves, if you would like to rewatch today's presentation or share it with a colleague, we will be emailing the link to everyone who registered for the demo cast within a week, so keep an eye out on your inbox. Finally, after you shut down Zoom, you'll be taken to a survey to provide feedback on your experience today. Please take a moment to complete the survey as it helps us to continue to serve your needs in the future. On behalf of the construction specifier and Deltek, thank you again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks all.